My name is Douglas Traubel. I've lived in Idaho for 28 years. Came here in 1994. Ada County Sheriff. It comes down to defending our quality of life and our rights. I'm a father of two grown young men in their 20s, and I feel a duty to them as their father. I feel a duty to my fellow citizens. I'm concerned that Marxism is taken our state down. It's already metastasized throughout the country, and I have a unique background that suits me quite well for the office of sheriff, because in that office, it's a unique role that can push back against overreach and defend what we have and restore what we've lost. I can't be a hypocrite and not jump in the arena when I have written and encouraged people who read my writings to do the same. If you're semi-retired, I encourage people to jump in and make a difference, because if you don't get reelected, so be it. You can fall back on your retirement. A lot of people that run for office are always worried about the next election. Worried about being out of a job. Well, I'm not worried about that. I want to do it for the right reasons, and I have the background that I think I can be very impactful. Marxism, our founding ethos, the origins of our country, the purpose of government is to secure God-given rights. So the smallest minority is the individual. We're seeing the individual's liberties be stepped on by this Marxist notion of group rights. And when you start advancing group rights over individual rights, well, the individual loses. You think of the English language, the word I. It's one letter, and it's always capital no matter where it is. And I think that's significant when you reconcile that letter, that word, against our history and what the Declaration of Independence tells us is the purpose of government, to secure what? God-given rights of the group? No, of the individual. And so that's being lost, and I want to bring that back. I want people to understand that it's the individual that matters. You can't crush an individual's rights by championing a group's rights. Then we have a caste system. Well, I have 32 years in law enforcement specifically, and that spans three agencies. 9 years I did in San Diego, specifically Chula Vista, California, located 7 miles from the Mexican border. And then I did 9 years with the Ada County Sheriff's Office in a number of positions there. One of them, by the way, I wrote a proposal to start the first gang unit for the Ada County Sheriff's Office, and that was a very forward-thinking idea, because when I was the SRO at Eagle High School, and by the way, I was chosen to be the first SRO when that high school opened, which speaks to how the administration thought of me. I mean, when you know, Eagle High, brand new school, we want to put someone in there who can do well. And so in that capacity, I noticed, of all places, Eagle High School, a gang presence. These were kids from Garden City that were bused into the high school. One of them was from Henderson, Nevada. And I discovered a gang called the Garden City Hogs. Hogs stood for Henderson's Original Gangsters. And they were selling dope and bullying kids and all kinds of crime. So I see this, and I start giving it a lot of attention. And then when the summer came, I suggested to the sheriff, Von Clean at the time, would he let me be a one-man gang unit while school's out? And he proved that. And on the first day, I stopped a car on Broadway in Boise, because remember, the sheriff has jurisdiction throughout the entire county, right? So the city is in the county. And I stopped this car, and in it is a pistol grip shotgun on the back seat. Ultimately, I find brass knuckles under the seat. There's a Old English script that says East Side on it, some do-rags. There's 3 occupants in the car. I end up having to use force on the driver. And so I walk into the SRO office, and keep in mind, when I'm talking about the gang presence in Ada County, my peers were thinking like I'm Don Quixote. Well, then the very first day, literally, of this temporary assignment, I walk into the office with a shotgun, do-rags, a hat, brass knuckles hanging on my pinky. I have a picture of it. And their jaw just drops. Well, from there, I wrote the proposal for a full-time gang unit, and it was approved. And I developed the policy and procedures for that. Had great success working with other agencies in the county and in the neighboring county, Canyon County. So in terms of my experience, I mean, I've always been very forward-thinking, and and it's been several times I've been selected as the first by the agencies I work for. In Chula Vista, California, I was selected as the first to be in a street team. It was a brand new unit, proactive unit, targeting gangs and series-related crimes like robberies, that sort of thing, where we do surveillance on homicide suspects too. But it was a very proactive unit. And so when you're chosen as the first, be it the first SRO at Eagle High School, the first person in the street team in San Diego, the first gang investigator or detective in the gang for Frady County Sheriff's Office, when you're chosen as the first, that you become the template, and you have a lot of input as to how that unit is going to be developed. And so I'm very forward-thinking. I know what effective law enforcement requires, and law enforcement in this county has become too reactive. And I want it to be proactive. I know how to be proactive, and I know how to do that without stepping on people's rights. You work in the guardrails of the Constitution and policy. You need to follow the rules. One of the books I wrote is "Can They Do That? How Police Get Around the Fourth Amendment." Some cops would say, "Why did you write that, Doug? You give up our secrets." No. We're the servants. We're the servants. The individual is who we serve. And I want an educated population that helps avoid a police state. And so I want effective law enforcement that honors individual liberty, constitutional protections, but I also want it to be effective. And I don't cower to or am not intimidated by social justice and this war on cops. I can be effective, proactive, and also guard the individual's constitutional rights. We saw at the courthouse here in Ada County, people were arrested for failure to appear when they were denied access for not wearing masks. Well, that's absurd, number one. They're dragged through the very door, they're denied entry without a mask, arrested for failure to appear. So my constitutional understanding and my fact that I honor my oath, that I put my oath in action, I would not allow that to happen as sheriff. Sheriffs that do not put their oath in action render the Constitution toothless, and government is unrestrained. So if I were sheriff and COVID 2.0 came back around, I would tell the judge, my deputies will not be pressed into your service. Their oath is not to you, Your Honor. It's to the Constitution, two constitutions, state and United States. And our state constitution, Article 1, Section 18, guarantees free and open access to the courts without prejudice. So if you choose not to wear a mask for it's a medical choice, and then you're denied access, and he says, deputies arrest that person for failure to appear, my deputies will understand that they're oath centered, and it's the proper thing to do is to refuse that. So my background, I'm kind of long-winded here, but it has to do with my policing experience, my understanding of the role of sheriff, the office of sheriff, how it's different from chiefs of police, my constitutional lens, my founding ethos lens. And so all that mixed together, I think, brings to Ada County something unique and important when we look over the last 2 years of this crushing government overreach. The Bill of Rights are the untouchables. And for this state to close churches, to in such an arbitrary fashion say what business is essential versus non-essential, there has to be such a high bar for that kind of liberty-crushing authority, which the legislature gave to the governor under 46601(1), but the standard of an extreme peril was never met, and that's the standard necessary for that sort of authority. And so where was the interposition by sheriffs in all 44 counties? And that's what I bring to the table. Again, my oath is not to a person, not to the governor, not to the president of the United States. I don't care if the ATF says they're going to come in and take ARs. Article 1, Section 11 of our state constitution, which I take an oath to, forbids gun confiscations and registrations. So you can tell me it's a law that the Congress passed, and I'll tell you the sovereign state of Idaho has a law too. Its constitution gives more protection to the individual than the U.S. Constitution. And so I will interpose physically and protect the individual so that they can have their guns, so they can go to church, so they can keep their business open, so they can have access to the court. For the oath to matter, or for the Constitution to matter, I should say, for the Constitution, or the oath has to matter. The oath has to matter. And we have not seen it matter for a long time. That's why this individual has shrunk and government has become so inflated on power, drunk on power, was never entitled to consume, especially the federal government. Those powers that are not delegated are assumed, and assumed powers are usurpations. And so you have to have that lens as a sheriff, as the people's guardian. People are my boss, and my oath is to the Constitution. So I will stand up for individual liberty. And that's what makes me different. Yes, throughout the last year, well, last summer until now, the media, particularly the Idaho Statesman and the Press Tribune, I think Channel 7, Voice State Radio, they continue to call me anti-Semitic and these other things. And the reason they're doing that is my book, Red Badge. I talk about the history, and it's not really known history, but it's certainly easily verifiable. It's very responsibly researched. I talk about the history of the Soviet Union. And there's a knee-jerk reaction to new information, or what's new to them. This is facts that are 80 and 100 years old, in fact. For instance, just to give the listeners, the viewers, a perspective, we all have heard about Kristallnacht in Nazi Germany, right, where Jewish business owners, their store windows were smashed. That's a horrible thing. And we should know about that in history. You have to ask yourself, why do we not see in history books the 300,000 Christian priests and nuns killed in the Soviet Union, and the 60,000 churches destroyed, but not one synagogue? And the fact of the matter is, and it's a fact, it's not my opinion, it's a fact, that the Soviet Union, it was not a revolution, it was a coup. And other people, so you can't say that, you're anti-Semitic. No, there's no judgment in this history. It's very responsibly researched. In fact, I even did a follow-up to my book with an 8-page document with sources, and I had a conversation the other day with a gentleman who represents a Jewish, I can't remember the name right now, it's the Jewish Telegraph Agency, I think it was. He called me on behalf of Rabbi Fink here in Boise, concerned about my writings. And so I was happy to have a conversation. I emailed this to him, and it has all the sources in it, and it's simply history. What kind of truth is it that needs such protection? You look at, again, an establishment history book in high school, and we all should know about the Japanese internment, right? But why don't we hear about the Germans, the Italians, and the Hungarians also interned in this country? Germans were interned twice, World War I and World War II. So we have this airbrush history. And so in my book, I illuminate facts of history that people don't know. When I'm talking about chapter 2, the history of communism, I have to talk about the history of the Soviet Union. And while the Jewish population was maybe as high as 2% in Russia, they were the overwhelming majority in the leadership roles of the Soviet government. They ran most of the gulags. This is just simply fact, not fiction. And I have the sources. One of the sources is the Encyclopedia Judea. 22 volumes of, it's lauded as the authoritative source for Jewish history. And Jewish folks are philanthropic. They've contributed much to the world. So this isn't a slam, or it's just simply history. If I were to tell you that the Nazi Party was filled with Germans, does that make me anti-Teutonic? Or is that simply a fact? And if I tell you that Jews were one of the victim classes in Nazi Germany, but were the villain class in the Soviet Union, that doesn't make me anti-Semitic. It is simply a fact. In my book, I talk about other things, the demographics of race and crime. I don't make up the victor-offender demographics that I get from the FBI. Okay, I talk about immigration. It doesn't make me, xenophobic. I mean, can we have an adult conversation in this country? This is why, in part, why we are falling so far and so fast. Information is controlled. What is deemed, appropriate, to talk about. It's so controlled. We have overlapping fields of fire of propaganda in this country, a self-validating false narrative that is a substitute for reality. And when someone like me brings some facts that challenge that false reality, that substitute for reality, there's a natural reaction, a label. They're going to call me a name. I'm not intimidated. I speak the truth, and I think only the truth, and honoring our oath is going to rectify so many of the things in this country that are making us spiral down. And so I'm happy to I email this to anybody. I mean, it's not me saying it. I mean, I'm saying it, but I'm compiling what others have said and sharing it. It's not my opinion. It is fact, and it is sourced. Great question. I would eliminate implicit bias training. Implicit bias training, in my opinion, is CRT for cops. It makes them less safe in the field and less proactive. And let me explain that. So when you're, in essence, told that you're a racist, at the subconscious level, you're a racist, you become more worried about surviving your career from your administration than surviving a violent encounter with a criminal. And the job pays the same whether you're reactive or proactive. So if I'm on patrol and I see suspicious behavior, and remember, we're addressing behavior, but let's say that behavior is being committed by someone in the social justice narrative who is cast in the role of oppressed or injured. Let's say it's a black male, but the behavior is suspicious and would otherwise command an investigative detention. Let's say I'm driving by a closed business, look down the alley, and I see this subject drop a screwdriver and turn quickly and start walking away. That's a set of circumstances that would normally command that I detain that person and make sure that, whether it was a crime or not. But when I go through implicit bias training, it puts this worry in the back of my mind. So maybe instead of acting on that, I just drive by and I wait for the business owner in the morning to come and report the burglary. And then I take the report. That's a safer way to survive my career than taking, because being proactive could be career ending if the optics turn bad and have to use force. Everyone's cameras come out and have to explain right now and how the media, label or whatever police shoot unarmed black man or those kind of things. So this puts worry in your mind. Well, it also, as I say, makes us less proactive and it makes the job more dangerous, because if I do detain this person and they're moving around a lot on me and I need to control their movements to be safe, again, it's sort of retarding my reaction time, because I have this analysis paralysis, this worry in my mind. Oh my goodness, I put hands on this person and it goes south and it escalates into force, and deadly force at that. I may be out of a job, or I may be, put in prison myself. So this worry. So therefore, you can double and triple the number of deputies, and crime still goes up if they don't know their sheriff backs them. And now, certainly, I'm going to hold deputies accountable if they're outside the guardrails of righteousness and policy and reason. There's rules. Got to follow the rules. As long as you're addressing behavior, I got your back. And I expect you to survive and control the encounter, and I expect you to defend our quality of life by being proactive. But the problem is, and this implicit bias training feeds into this narrative of the war on cops, that the cops are the Klan in blue. No, they are not. And I'm offended by that. This is a profession. I've been part of it for 32 years. Now, there is a self-fulfilling prophecy here, because as the left continues the war on cops, cops are retiring early, quitting early, and the bar is being lowered throughout the country to fill the ranks. And so you're going to get people without the moral fiber that you would want to be an officer and wear the badge. In Idaho, we're pretty lucky because we're getting a lot of the people from other states coming up here, and we sort of have the best to pick from. But still, even in Idaho, there are people leaving, officers leaving sooner than planned because of this sort of influence. It's making it very difficult for them to do their job. So one of the things I would change again is get rid of implicit bias training, replace it with what? The golden rule and a class on the Constitution, because that needs to be emphasized. Individual liberties need to be emphasized. And so I want my deputies to know, I back you. I want you to be proactive. I want you to be effective. And I want you to be constitutional and get this bug out of their head that is making them reactive, armed report takers. That's not going to defend Ada County. I reject the premise behind this whole war on cops. Yeah, there's some bad apples. There's bad doctors. There's bad dentists. And who arrests bad cops? Good cops. And so I don't give police a king's X. You read my book, there's a couple accounts in there where I praise the system for holding cops accountable for criminal conduct. So I'm not one to give a king's X, but I've been there. I've used deadly force. I've been in situations. I was on the SWAT team. I was in the gang unit. I know the dangers and the realities of the job, and I can look at bad optics. And I'll tell you something: bad optics are not conclusive of bad police work necessarily. It's not. There's no pretty way to take a person into custody who doesn't want to be taken into custody. And then you add the layers of social justice narrative, race and all these things, and a biased media. You need a sheriff that can stand up and look through all this and hold the line on our quality of life and truth and professionalism. And so, just in that direction, that needs to be eliminated. That is a poison. It needs to be taken out of the sheriff's office.